Okay, is there any way to treat internal jugular vein compression and thoracic outlet syndrome without surgery? I would say, yeah, like that should be the first line. Like surgery as a first line is, you can't really, it's hard to take a surgery back, right? But conservative treatment, you know, the worst case is that you end up in a more aggressive treatment strategy typically. So internal jugular vein compression can occur just from simple misalignments in the skull and the upper cervical vertebrae. Super common way to present. Obviously, there can be a lot of nuance in the way that that looks, but being able to control that head and neck position and movement is a great first step. Thoracic outlet is super respondent to even just simple physical therapy. A lot of thoracic outlet, basically the thoracic outlet is, I've got nerves, arteries, veins that travel like down under, like from my neck, down underneath, behind my clavicle, and between my clavicle and first rib. So if you feel there's like your big bone right there, that clavicle, and then behind that there's another bone that your rib that kind of goes around the back. And then you have all of that little bundle of goodies, blood and nerves, that come through there. And with different shoulder positioning, you can kind of block that. And the easy way you find it is you can just see if there's response of muscle activity. We get weakness in the hand typically. Easiest way to look, a little tidbit for people. So the nerve fibers that'll be affected the most are the ones at the bottom. So they're the ones that come from the C8 disc and the T1 disc. And they come around, and if there's compression against that rib, usually it's the bottom ones that are going to be affected the most. So people will oftentimes, like if you're typing or working at your desk, you might get some numbness and tingling on the lateral part of your hand, like where your pinky is, usually kind of right over here first, maybe even the fourth digit as well. And sometimes on the outside of the hand, you'll notice it. And then what you can do is we have people hold their hands like this, like that. And then we can just have them squeeze their pinky in. Anybody that's been in has probably seen me do this. And you're just going to try to pull that pinky out or have someone do it. And what you'll notice is it should be able to kind of hold itself in and snap back pretty well. But what you'll notice is in that thoracic outlet side, it'll be weak, where it'll just kind of be hard to hold it in and it'll be slow to come back. Okay, so that's number one. That's for like a neurogenic TOS. And then if we look at vascular, then we're just looking at, is it compressing blood vessels? Obvious way to do that. There are several TOS tests, but you just look at, can you feel the arterial pulses in the median and ulnar sides? And then if you rotate the arm out, if you stretch the arm back like a doorway stretch, or if you compress the clavicle and turn your head away, do any of those things cause the pulse to go away? And then a really simple way to do it, if you're just kind of screening, is you have people put their hands behind their back like this, and then you check that way as well. And you see if the pulses go away. And a lot of you can do this and feel like my fingers go numb. So there's a sign. So those are kind of the quick and dirty ways that people check for TOS. And then what you're doing is basically saying, how do I offload it so I can hold that clavicle up and create space again? For most people, that's not necessarily a surgical problem. I would say even though we're online, everything lives forever, like the vast majority of people probably don't need that resolved surgically. They can probably do it through strengthening, being able to like have a little bit of extra trap activity that allows them to be able to hold that shoulder up without it internally rotating and kind of rotating down like that. Most of you will notice that that kind of makes the symptoms worse, but being upright and lifting your shoulders up a little bit will let that off. So lots of opportunity there, lots of opportunity for upside. Also, another little tidbit, since we're on this topic of thoracic outlet, on the venous side of that, the vein draining side, one of the things that you will often see is when we hold someone's hands up overhead like this, it'll just drain. Their hands will get just white. They might get weak or they might get numb being up there, and they might get really cold. And that can also be a signal that we're having a little bit of occlusion on the arterial side, but people might also notice that they get heaviness in their hands if the veins are getting congested. And when their arms are up, they might notice that they start to feel a fullness in their head. You might see the veins in their head and neck start to bulge out, in which case then you're looking at retrograde flow that could be coming from not being able to drain the subclavians. So just things to think about, but definitely amenable, actually fun to work on, and usually have really good results. What treatments are available for internal jugular vein compression? Okay, so if we have internal jugular vein compression, we want to know what's compressing it. Sometimes this can be something osseous, like a bone, like a styloid is kind of the one that people talk about, where this little bone on the back here has a massoid, and then it's got a little kind of pointy part that comes out. And for some people that can get real long. And in certain scenarios, it can actually cause compression. In those cases where that's long and it's just really compressing it, you can see it on an MRV, especially a reconstructed one. And if it's just like clinching it off, sometimes you got to shave that styloid process off. That's number one. Sometimes they can be osseous because you just get like a shift in the positioning of your neck. So if we talked about last time, if that central vestibular system's off, we may actually have these weird positioning of the head and neck that causes a rotation in those upper vertebrae that can cause some of that compression as well. And then, just simple posture related things. So as long as it's not something that needs to be actually like removed, a lot of times first step is like, can we just get things squared up, get everything lined up like Jenga blocks, and see if that doesn't help with that problem to begin with. Okay, so that's number one. That's low hanging fruit. The risk is super low, and then payoffs are high. And if it just doesn't work, then you can always go into more invasive types of things. So that is probably the way that I would approach thinking about that. Could internal jugular vein and or thoracic outlet cause symptoms even down the leg? So now we start to get interesting. So if it's just purely based on like the vascularity, that vascularity is probably not going to affect your leg. But if we start to get into things that happen in the spinal column, in the spinal cord itself, and a lot of times if we've got a jacked up way we're moving our neck, you can affect things on the outside, like we're talking about here, internal jugular vein, carotid artery, vagus nerve on one end, and then sympathetic chain coming up. The last two are both nerves. And then we can also have on the inside the spinal cord itself, where we can start to generate problems that typically go to the bowel and bladder and to the feet first. So in those cases, if we're actually affecting the cord, then that might be more likely to affect someone's legs. One thing to note is that they'll also, you may have sensory changes, and then you also may notice that we get like these jumpier types of reflexes, and that can be an indicator and lead us down the road toward Lhermitte's sign. So a lot of people experience that. That's a pretty common one. Maybe that would help.